So I'm watching CNN right now, and Moderna is promising results in phase 1 vaccine trial. And just so you understand that what neutralizing antibodies are, what they're doing is neutralizing the host, okay? Because the host is what carries a virus. The virus is just data. And when you have inflammation or reactions like a biochemical change, let's say you're losing your sense of smell, you're losing or seeing a difference in your five senses, that's just the biochemistry reconfiguring. And then you have to give your body what it needs to be able to get back your smell and fix any of the anomalies from that upgrade. But what's going on is the whole point of these vaccines, as well as hydroxychloroquine, what they're doing is they're trying to destroy the host, which has the virus, and you're the host. So when you have an antibody that is bound to your cells that have the virus, what it does, it keeps emitting antibodies, which systematically destroys the body over time, because a virus will get into all of your cells over time. So when you have an antibody that is bound to the virus, which is bound to the host and neutralizes it, and you have those in your bloodstream, that's when it's like you are basically playing Space Invaders. You're doing pew, 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 pew to all the different cells that hold this virus data. And virus is just data. It's just an upgrade. And so, but the reason why people are taking the vaccines and taking the hydroxychloroquine is because they don't want to feel the evolution process. They don't want to feel pain. They don't want to feel the symptoms of evolution. And so what the hydroxychloroquine and the vaccines do is they actually stagnate evolution. However, the reason why vaccines are not poisonous to those that are on the J juice, as well as those that are not on the J juice who have the ability to handle it, is the fact that it does slow down the antibody acquisition. And so that way a person doesn't feel too much of evolution right at once, because when you're not giving your body what it needs and you are energizing your immune system with the vaccines as well as the hydroxychloroquine, this is when people could potentially die, because they're not giving their body what it needs and the antibodies are fast accumulating. Okay, so that's why with the J juice, you do it slowly. Okay, you do it slowly so that way you're not feeling the evolution process so quickly, because it's a lot to handle. Okay, and so there is a reasoning why the vaccines exist and why they're very similar to jelly juice, but the outcome and the science, the actual technical science between the two are very, very different. Okay, but they both energize the immune system, but one doesn't allow you to evolve, which is the hydroxychloroquine and the vaccines, but the jelly juice does allow you to evolve regardless if you get a vaccine or exposed to a virus. Okay, so that's the reason why they are pushing the vaccines on the population. And some could say that, yeah, it's an intentional depopulation. And I wouldn't argue with that on some level, because antibodies are antibody. Antibodies are antibody. Your body is not supposed to be holding on to antibodies on an indefinite level. You're supposed to be exposed rather quickly, okay, with a lesser version or a higher version, whatever, but your body's supposed to be able to handle it and then emit it, have it get excreted very, very, very quickly. But what happens is we have very stagnated immune systems, and then people with bellies who do not excrete their excess microbiome, so those antibodies get caught up and they stay in the microbiome, causing more data overload. Okay, so this is why it's so important to understand how the immune system is supposed to work, and then why jelly juice is so important for those that have been exposed to the virus as well as taking the vaccine, because those excess antibodies will destroy you over time. You have to know this. Yes, you may have less inflammation when you get the vaccine relative to your predispositions, but inflammation is evolution. But they're trying to slow down evolution a little bit, no different than when you take jelly juice. for the first time, you're going to take a little bit because it is, something that you have to transition into as far as the jelly juice world. Because you have to release the excess antibodies and you'll be revisiting old microbiomes. Eventually, even those antibodies that will not trigger a positive on a titer test, they'll still be in your body because it's part of your microbiome, but it's not going to be imbalanced. So the thing with Dr. Fauci and Trump with the hydroxychloroquine is that they're reacting wrong to this virus if they're not bringing in something that's going to help people adapt and release the excess antibodies that you're going to be getting from a vaccine as well as a virus in your environment. So whether you wear a mask or not, it's not going to matter. You being exposed to 1 people or 20 people, you're going to have to deal with your environment. There's no two ways about it. But you have to know how to release the excess antibodies as well as the excess microbiome, which is the viruses, parasites, protozoa, proteins, fungus, and bacteria. I mean, when you see someone with a fungal infection, you know that they have an overabundance of fungus because they're not bringing in a balancing force to keep the fungus at bay. But then they take these antifungals that destroy their part of their microbiome and causes more imbalances. That's why you don't want to take antifungals, antibiotics, antivirals, because viruses need a host. You're the host. If you're taking an antiviral or an antifungal, you are the host. You are that microbiome. It's destroying you. When you are inducing antibodies on a continuous basis to where it binds to the proteins, it binds to the cells that hold the virus, that's when autoimmunity happens, because that's when the blood types change from AB to like A or to D, or you have an AB positive. Positive is the RH factor, which is the rhesus monkey gene. But that's why you have now so many different blood types, because of the surface marker antigen, which is the imprint, which is the continuous accumulation and production of antibodies that is systematically thickening people's blood and then causing people to die from heart attacks. Because people are not bringing in enough electrolytes, they're not bringing in enough nutrition, they have leaky gut, they're not maximizing their nutritional intake because they have leaky gut. And so then when they get exposed to something like the COVID and they have weaknesses in their lungs, that fast accumulation of antibodies from that exposure will then cause them to drown in their own fluids, which is why jelly juice is so important with the COVID. So that way you can energize your system to release the excess mucus, release the excess antibodies that are in the mucus, so you don't drown, and then you actually thin out your blood with the J juice, not too much thin out, but the electrolytes actually dilute the blood enough to allow it to keep running through and release the excess antibodies. Because too many antibodies is like when you take an O positive person or O negative person and give them an AB positive blood, all that surface marker antigen will then cause a major amount of antibodies being produced. And that's why people die from organ shutdown, because of too many antibodies all at once. That's the same concept as when you you have a stagnated immune system and then you get exposed to a virus or you get a vaccine that you are not able to release the excess antibodies. This is where the progressive systematic destruction of the human happens at the micro level. And then fertility gets triggered, and then also major cancer disease and chronic illness. And that's why chemotherapy and cannabis and everything antibiotic, antifungal, antiparasitic, antimicrobial, all induces antibodies, and it shortens your telomeres. Do you realize that some people cannot afford to take the chemotherapy? But I see this lady on my Facebook who is so skinny, who is getting chemotherapy, and she's not going to be able to handle it. Oh yeah, they're going to keep her on. They're going to say, oh yeah, my blood work is great. Yeah, for a very short amount of time, until those antibodies start destroying the vital organs. Because she's not going to be releasing those antibodies because her system is so sluggish. That's why she's on chemotherapy to begin with, because the infection is too many antibodies that are not being released. That's what infection is. Okay? That's what inflammation is. Inflammation is like you have your prostaglandins, which is the healing hormone that's being suppressed by antibiotics, and then you have all these antibodies being produced, and that is antibody, anti-life, anti-you, anti-host. I wish people would understand this, and that's why jelly juice is so important to understand, that it takes away that imprint, that microbiome that holds all of those excess antibodies. It's causing your death and destruction. So I know it's going to fall on deaf ears. I get it. And people need to make money, and I understand that. But those of you that are promoting your cannabis, your pills, your powders, and your supplements, and you're not promoting jelly juice, you are definitely falling in the same line as pharma, big pharma, that is not promoting a type of chemistry that supports the upgrade process. I can understand the vaccine industry. They're trying to give people a way to adapt to the new environment, but you still need jelly juice in conjunction with the vaccines. Because the vaccines give you one half of the equation, which is a way to acclimate to your new environment, but you still have to support that upgrade. If not, you'll be accumulating antibodies on a continuous basis. And then the dad bods out there with the big protruding bellies and the sluggish lymphatic system, you're going to see cancer rise. You're going to see exotic diseases come about. And then you got to create another drug, another antibiotic, another type of procedure that's going to systematically destroy more generations in the future. So I wish that biotech would understand where I'm coming from. Instead of using jelly juice as a cure, use it as a foundation to understand people have to adapt to the new environment. But you're right. Those of you that do believe there is a depopulation agenda, that's why I've been attacked by not only Dr. Phil, but by all the people that believe in the compartmentalized subjective academia that doesn't want you to see the bigger connection, because there's so much money to be made in compartmentalizing your body and commodifying your body parts. Okay? There's so much money. I mean, I'm watching my friends selling each other, cannabis, oil, and all of that. And all of those antibiotics are going to be accumulating from those, from those herbs. And those antibodies will be accumulating from those herbs. And then people will not survive their next heart attack, their next stroke. And it's unfortunate, but that's the way of the world. But I would feel remiss not speaking out that Dr. Fauci is not correct when you think about it on a long-term basis. And neither is Trump with his promotion of hydroxychloroquine. None of anything that's antiviral where you are, or you're trying to find antibodies that bind to those viruses that bind to the host, that causes then systematic, progressive, accelerated decay. That's not life. That's a continuous death process. And I don't subscribe to that, and neither does the jelly juice crowd. All right, bye.